Welcome to Peers, political economic elemental researchers and strategists. At Peers, we stand as your all-in-one partner, adept at steering you through the intricate realms of politics, economics, and business. Join us at Peers. We're our seasoned team with expertise in politics, economy, business, and law is committed to your success. Together, we will navigate the future, making informed decisions that lead to lasting impacts. Follow us on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn to stay informed about how we can help you achieve your goals.
Previously on episode 16, AI and Getting By, Opportunities and Adversities.
Two things that we call general artificial intelligence and narrow artificial intelligence. General is like what you would understand, like coming close to human intelligence, different tasks can make different decisions. And narrow artificial intelligence, also machine learning based software, that's what we currently have. But what is that? I mean, it's the most basic understanding. It's software that has the ability to learn and make decisions and generate stuff for us.
There's this very interesting article recently from The Economist, and they're actually tracking the uptake of AI across highly industrialized nations, OECD nations as they call them. So you're talking about UK, the US, and Canada. Nowhere across the industries in these three countries has the figure hit in the upper 20s. At most, it's at 20% uptake, right? So there's the low of 5% in Canada, and then there's 15% in the UK, and around 20% of companies surveyed by The Economist are answering to the question, have you integrated AI into your business and in your operations in various ways? And it's not even specific, it's a very general thing. No? So they could probably have introduced AI in a very narrow, specific sense, or that they're using AI even in business decision making. So it could be across that range, no? And their answer is not even in the high 20s. So by analogy, I would say that it would even be lower here in the Philippines. Yeah. And there are, I think, across all these countries, there are common reasons why AI's uptake is not yet very high.
I don't know whether this is a disadvantage or an advantage. It's probably both, but perhaps we can learn from some of the mistakes that have been taken already by governments that have already incorporated AI in the day-to-day work that not only the government does, but the reason why we call it governance in the first place is because when we say government, when we say policy making, when we say policy implementation and programs and so on and so forth, it's not just plain limited to government agencies. It's now involving private sector and private individuals and so on and so forth. But the challenge in the Philippines is actually more basic as far as not only AI, but in terms of infrastructure and in terms of governmental organization or capacity for that matter.
We're asking what our governments have been doing so far. I'm glad that an agency of government has taken the lead insofar as AI strategy and policy is concerned. I'm happy to say that DTI is taking the lead. In fact, in 2022, it issued a paper, and rightly so, identifying that there are 10 million jobs in the Philippines at risk. So these are manufacturing jobs, service jobs, and agricultural jobs. And it's an important statistic to remember because our government, with a population of 110 million across the Philippines, should be mindful of the danger of the obsolescence of our human capital, which we have a lot of available. And many of these we are relying upon. We pride ourselves with the most number of BPO seats, a title which India gladly relinquished to the Philippines simply because they moved up the value chain. Instead of just, contenting themselves with back office jobs, they moved up to software development and many others, right? So if we don't think of it along those lines, and we are encouraging the uptake of AI across our industry and in government, we may unwittingly kick our people out of their jobs if we do not also put the policy in place and the investments in place to reskill and upskill them. So
there's so much work to do, no, in that regard. And I have to add, Kong Ace, that when AI is application, basically, no. And as an application, it has to be understood not only from the perspective of technology, from the perspective of engineering, but it has to be understood in the context of the social sciences, no? How it's put to good use in society, and how it is translated into regulations, and therefore legal scholars and policymakers have to really understand this, and so on and so forth.
And I think we need to make those similar changes in our policy making, in our education, and in our R&D spending. If we are to make as much of the strides that India has made. Of course, we're talking about a country of billions of people. We also have a large human capital pool. And so maybe we can start looking at it from that perspective. And I also especially like the perspective offered earlier by Sven about where our country could focus on, especially in the large pool of cybersecurity manpower that is needed, not just across the world, but even here in the Philippines.
Magandang umaga po sa lahat. Isa na naman pong Sunday where we would be discussing yung mga magagandang pangyayari, where we are providing opinions, context, and analysis of the many things that are happening in our country and shaping our nation. And ngayong umaga, we will be discussing about a very significant event of which we as a nation also define our direction in the coming 12 months. And very importantly, we will be joined, of course, by our peers, si Pierre Novel Bangsal, who would also be discussing about in relation to our topic today. Our topic today is very important, no? Napaka significant po in the growth of our nation. No? Yung sinasabi nating State of the Nation Address. And for all that we know, it is actually one of our rights to know about the direction of our nation, because this is a period by which our president, no, pumupunta po siya before the Assembly of the Philippine Congress to tell about the situation of development, the plans for the next 12 months, and the legislative measures. So ganun po yung democratic exercise po natin, and kailangan nating malaman in that context in relation to this is already stipulated, no, in the Philippine Constitution. So ganun po. And without further ado, allow me to introduce an expert on this, si Pierre Novel Bangsal. Magandang umaga po, Sir Novel, mula dito sa Davao City, Mindanao.
Good morning, Pierre, Adrian, at saka sa ating mga followers dito sa ating Pierre talakayan. And it's nice to be back, and sabi mo nga, Pierre Adrian, maganda yung ating topic ngayon because a week from now, exactly July 22, yun po yung araw ng SONA, and tama rin yung gaya sabi ni Pierre Adrian, this is an annual exercise where the President presents the State of the Nation with both houses of Congress joining or attending dito sa may House of Representatives. And para lang siguro Per Adrian, parang just to provide the context, ano ba
Yes, sir.
usually yung sinasabi ni presidente during the SONA na ano. So siguro maganda sigurong before we parang make some sort of parang assessment or review whether or not based doon sa sinasabi ni presidente nasa on track pa rin tayo doon sa mga pangako pangako
Correct.
ng presidente when he took his oath as the president of this republic. So, siguro kailangan siguro balikan natin ano ba yung pinaka agenda ni presidente when he took office. So siguro magandang ano natin siguro is umpisa natin yung usapan natin doon sa 8-point agenda na ito yung parang pinaka development reform program ni Presidente wherein ang pinaka-objective niya dito with this 8-point agenda is to reduce poverty at a single digit rate and elevate yung status ng country to upper middle income status. Siguro maganda to Adrian lalo doon sa pag-poverty yung pinag-uusapan natin kasi later on ipag-uusapan natin yung of course about Mindanao
Yes.
development in Mindanao ano ang naging mga updates sa Mindanao ngayon so I think this would be a very important take-off point pagdating doon sa discussion natin sa Mindanao so we will be talking about the 8-point agenda. Tsaka dito siguro maganda, dito natin ibase siguro yung ating assessment. Whether ano ba ang mga progress na nangyayari given that in a few months nasa midterm na tayo ng administrasyon and by next year this will be siguro kasi national election na by next year. So very important that this will be sort of parang validation
Yes.
kung whether itong mga pangako priorities na na-identify ng administrasyon na to talagang nami-meet ba or hindi. So, iisa-isahin ko lang siguro just to highlight ano yung mga
Sure.
8-point agenda na yun na sinasabi ni Presidente. So, I think very basic dito is yung protect purchasing power. So, I'm sure and even the surveys would show na inflation talaga ang major issue dito sa ating bansa. And I think for the past few months and quarters, talaga ang inflation talaga yung talagang number one concern na nasa ano ng mga tao ngayon and I think it will not be surprising kasi especially ang tinatamaan ng inflation during this recent days and weeks kadalasan kasi ang sources ng ang sinasabi nila drivers of inflation nanggagaling doon sa food.
Yes.
So, in fact, of the food commodities na talagang medyo malikot yung price niya is rice, of course. Na and siguro na ingid sa ating kaalaman, there's this move to reduce tariff rates ng imported rice para to drive the retail prices of rice siguro much lower than ano yung current level na ngayon. So with that action or with that move, the government siguro would expect inflation to medyo ma-minimize or ma-stabilize doon sa doon sa target nilang kasing 3 to 4% range. So hopefully tingnan po natin but again dito sa agenda na to I think kung talagang i-assess natin yung yung performance um, and base sa datos, over the siguro past few quarters, medyo hindi tayo tumatama doon sa range ng 3 to 4%. So, madalas nasa above 4% yung inflation rate natin. So, maintindihan naman natin na talagang medyo hirap yung karamihan sa ating mga kababayan. So, I think this is one important area na kailangan talagang pagtuunan ng pansin ng national government. That's one sa inflation. Two is yung pag-reduce ng vulnerability and scarring from COVID-19. So pandemic pa rin yung ano. But kailangan ko lang siguro i-highlight dito yung addressing learning losses. Oo, kasi kung ma-recall natin during the pandemic, 'di ba, nagkaroon ng online classes. So medyo hybrid yung approach natin sa sa education. And ang naging uh, pagsusuri dito sa ano whether kung ano ba epekto niya sa sa um, learning competences ng mga estudyante, it was found out na malaki ang naging epekto in terms of learning losses. So I think that's one thing na kailangan siguro we will have to parang step up para mabawi natin yung mga learning losses that nangyari during the pandemic. So I think, and that would in a way parang nagre-reflect kasi yan doon sa PISA scores natin. And not to sugarcoat yan. Ang hirap kasi i-sugarcoat when nasa bandang uh, nasa hulihan ka among the countries na when it comes to doon sa ating, of course, learning competencies ang dito pinag-uusapan. So
It will have impact on our competencies, productivity
yes.
later on when they become part of the labor force, right?
Yes. Yes, that's true, Peter Adrian. And I think siguro later on marami ka ring masasabi dito, especially kung ano nangyari sa Mindanao area. And having said that, and na-mention mo na rin, Peter Adrian, with regards to ano magiging uh, impact niya sa employment. So dito naka-identify din dito sa 8-point agenda yung pag-create ng more quality jobs to
Mhm.
promote trade and investment. So again, very important kasi dito sa pag-generate natin ng ng employment, kasi pag titingnan niyo yung unemployment at saka underemployment data natin, while medyo na natin na address natin yung issue ng unemployment, kasi I think latest figures is nasa 4% unemployment tayo ngayon, but kailangan natin kasing mas lalong uh, pag-aralan yung issue of underemployment. Kasi this refers to your quality of quality of jobs na nasa market ngayon. So the higher yung underemployment mo, ibig sabihin is that yung ating mga Filipino workers are not able to earn yung level of wage or salaries that para gainful, sabi nga gainful employment na in a way, because of the quality of jobs, kasi ang issue kasi dito minsan is nagkakaroon pa rin ng yung issue ng mismatch between yung demand nung ng economy or ng market mo, and of course yung quality of graduates that yung ating education system is producing. So I think marami pa dapat gawin para ma-address natin yung issue of quality employment dito sa bansa. So ang another item in the 8-point agenda is yung I think this is very critical, and magandang segue to ni Pierre Adrian, is yung public order and safety and peace and security. So I think itong item na to would be best discussed in the context of ano yung nangyayari ngayon sa Mindanao. So, siguro, again, mamaya, I think mas ma-highlight pa ni Peer Adrian to. And siguro yung final is yung ensure yung level of playing field by strengthening market competition and reducing barriers to entry. So, yun po ang nakasaad doon sa 8-point agenda ng presidente. And I'm very sure that in his itong coming State of the Nation address niya, karamihan po dito will be tackling ano po ang naging mga interventions ni presidente and ano pa ang pwede niyang i-tackle in the next remaining or after nung kanyang post midterm in the next 3 years of his administration. Just to lang siguro Boss Adrian siguro I'll just have to parang cite ano pa yung mga remaining agenda, and I think if you remember during the last episode nung kami nag-usap ni Peer Tony, napag-usapan na rin kasi namin yung mga LIDAC priorities. So I think based doon sa aming last usapan ni Sir Tony, I'm very sure that yung agenda ni BBM in the next 3 years or next year siguro will be pursuing yung mga unfinished agenda niya doon sa LIDAC. So I think yun muna siguro Sir Peer Adrian, then siguro na lang natin, medyo himay-himayin natin yung mga iba-ibang other agenda as we go along. Peer Adrian?
Oo, dami no, no? And then I would wish to contribute also into the discussion, Peer Novel, especially yung very close to every household is yung purchasing power. Because
Yes.
pag na-improve yung purchasing power, yung tanong ng kahirapan is not anymore an issue, no? Kasi anyone could get access already of the basic commodities, especially yung na-mention nyo nga, yung sa food. Uh, Sabi nga, yung purchasing power happens to be in relation also with the concept of yung sinasabi nating supply in the market, and you have
Yes.
mentioned tariff. But perhaps kailangan din natin tingnan yung effort of the national government in relation to strengthening our capacity as a nation to provide food.
Yeah.
Yung food security, yung agriculture sector natin, Peer Novel. And other than the agriculture sector, we need to also improve the value chain so that we will not only be producing raw materials, but also come to the point that we would also be producing the final products, but that can be distributed in the country and the international community. And that translates into, pag meron tayong hold on that, then we would improve our purchasing power. There's one recent engagement with supplier of banana. Sabi niya, punta siya sa South Korea and he said, tayo lang pala we are producing the raw bananas. Most of them are already into packaged and dried bananas, dried mangoes. Yun, ganong context.
Yeah.
You know, when we do that, kasi pag merong konteksto tayo, naiisip that we have to improve the value chain, it translates into dito, Peer Novel, yung sinasabi nating quality jobs and trade and investment. Kasi we will now have the capacity and the confidence to interact in the international market.
Yeah.
If we keep on producing only raw materials, then malayo yun sa whole value chain.
Yeah, yeah.
So yun ang I'm also looking at that. And also doon sa barriers to entry, one good thing is itong priority lane, the green lane on infrastructure projects. And it is good because these are conditions also that would meet the international requirement for investability of our country. In this context, Pierre Novel, no, we are looking at the operational part. How about the fiscal management?
Mm.
Will there also be a report card on that? The utilization, the proper use, efficient, effective. Meron bang ganon in the history of our SONA? And also, are we expecting that also, Karen,
Nako.
no, in the coming week?
Uh, Nako, Sir Peer Adrian, tama-tama yung na-mention mo, fiscal. Hindi, kasi kami ni Sir Tony kasi malapit sa kami yung parang fiscal medyo uh, malalim din yung aming sa fiscal concern. So with regards to that, very important, tama-tama kasi yung pag-mention mo ng about fiscal or yung pag yung sound macro fiscal natin development. Very important kasi sa atin, especially when we are targeting 6 to 7% growth. Very important kasi yan, Pierre Adrian, kasi gusto nga natin by the end of the term ni Presidente, single digit na yung poverty. Pero para bago ka makarating doon sa single digit poverty rate na yon is kailangan of course meron kang sapat na resources para mai-push mo yung economy into sabi nga nila upper middle income status, but kailangan mag-start muna kasi tayo doon sa budget or sa fiscal capacity ng gobyerno para maiangat yung ating bansa into a higher growth path. So pag-uusapan po natin yung pag pinag-usapan po natin yung tungkol sa fiscal, kailangan very important muna dito is yung revenue capacity natin. Nakakakolekta ba tayo ng sapat na taxes or resources para mapondohan yung mga dapat natin pondohan patungo sa sa higher development fund. So pag titingnan na kasi natin kung sapat ba yung nakukolekta natin. Kasi very important to Pierre Adrian, kasi pag hindi po sapat yung ating nakukolekta sa taxes, at ito po yung gusto natin mangyari sa atin in the next few years. Parang lang yan, sa pamilya lang yan eh. Parang ito ang kinikita ni tatay nanay. Pero gusto natin bilhin ganito. Kunwari gusto natin bumili ng sasakyan, gusto natin bumili ng iPhone, ganyan na Pero kung hindi sapat yung kinikita nung family o nung household, then wala po tayong choice kundi umutang. So pag ganun kasi, pag lumalaki yung utang natin, parang it forces yung interest rate to increase. So parang ang nagiging sitwasyon nun is nagiging limited yung sources mo ng borrowing. So again, very important siguro dito is that kailangan mapalakas natin yung pangongolekta ng taxes. And sa ngayon, marami kasi tayo nakapending ng mga tax measures. Andun yung pag-impose ng VAT sa digital services, andyan yung ease of paying taxes, andyan yung pag-increase mo ng motor vehicle charges. So maraming nakasalang ngayon ng mga tax measures sa both houses of from Congress. And kung maalala nyo doon sa discussion ni Pirtoni last episode, ang projection namin, just kung assuming na ma-approve natin lahat itong mga pending fiscal measures na to, makakakolekta tayo ng 120 billion just for 2024. So malaking bagay yun, Pierre Adrian. Kung malaking tulong siya doon sa ating currently nakokolekta na taxes ngayon, para at least mapondahan natin yung mga ibang development expenditures natin. So yun, kailangan siguro as moving forward, kailangan pagtuunan ng pansin ng nitong gobyerno na to if they intend to meet the objectives ng 8-point agenda, which is to reduce poverty rate at single digit, kailangan palakasin pa natin yung fiscal fiscal capacity natin para kasi very important to Pierre Adrian, kasi pagdating mo doon sa budgeting, especially for Mindanao, kasi kailangan itong mga areas kasi pagpapansinin mo yung poverty rate, unemployment, and ano yung gross regional domestic product nung major regions, mapapansin mo kasi medyo hindi nahuhuli, medyo behind pa rin yung region si Mindanao. So I think ito yung kailangan siguro malinaw na message dun sa SONA message ni Presidente, na if we intend to achieve our goals in the medium term or by the end of this term, kailangan palakasin natin yung fiscal component nitong economy, and that is of course to be able to pass yung mga proposed tax measures na yon, and to strengthen of course yung budget budget implementation, kasi maski napupundahan yung mga dapat pundahan pero hindi naman maayos yung paggastos ng pera na yon, sayang din naman yung yung resources na yon. So I think from that point, yun yung kailangan ma-highlight dito sa next SONA ni Presidente. Pero Adrian?
Correct. As you have mentioned also, tama po kayo, Pierre Novel, no? Yung sinasabi na the share of Mindanao also, because in addition to the sound fiscal management of the nation, parang it would also be good and just appropriate to also look at the potential of the country. For the sources, no, increased resources, as well as the value creation leading to revenue generation. And in Mindanao, the daming resources po dito, the Pierre Novel, that the most of us can take advantage of. Allow me to share also Pierre Novel, and para na rin po nasa kaalaman ng ating mga nanonood, some of the figures about Mindanao, as you have mentioned, and here this one. In the course of time, we have this, and tamang-tama kasi you have mentioned yung sinasabi natin. One really is the share of Mindanao in terms of infrastructure spending. If we try to look at that, it is increasing over a period of time. And the most recent is a dramatic improvement in the annual average growth rate for Mindanao in the infrastructure spending. Kasi nga, as you have mentioned po, and there are plenty of areas where we need also to improve expenditure, such as in the irrigation, such as in the road connectivity, so that yung production areas, production sites, madali na pong madala doon sa warehouses and sa distribution centers. And annual infrastructure spending from 2015 po ito, I'm very sorry. From 2015 up to 2005, happened to be for the 19 years, Marcos administration expenditure went up, 120.4%. Saan po sila ano po yung napuntahan ng infrastructure spending po natin? One is on the power. Because the most recent, sinasabi po natin that there's the change in the structure of our GDP now with 5.9% in the growth rate, yung structure po of that GDP mas malaki po doon sa development of the gadgets, telecommunications, manufacturing, and that needs power. If we have excess of capacity of power here, so the project of the Visayas Mindanao interconnectivity, kasi nga daming energy dito, daming power dito, daming electricity dito, and we produce that in a affordable manner. kasi nga we have hydroelectric power, no, dun sa Maria Cristina Falls, no? Hydro power, and we send it to the whole nation in order to support the whole nation's growth. So that's the contribution of the investments that are happening in infrastructure development in Mindanao. There is also the irrigation projects where we would need also to produce higher capacity for rice and for other related foods. And another is the plant breeze. And ngayon po, no, yung sa areas in Maguindanao, medyo may problema po in the flood, and it is something that we have to also look into because that is damage to properties, no, houses and plantation areas that could have contributed to an increase in our food supplies. Kaya nga, we would be expecting a little increase spike in the inflation because during periods po, pag umuulan, yung supply of food po natin, no, medyo bumababa, and transfer of those food coming from Mindanao to the national would be a little bit disrupted. So we hope, no, that all things that we are doing here in Mindanao contributes also to the whole nation's growth. And some other, saan po pumupunta yung improvement infrastructure share of Mindanao? Ito po, road network development. Kasi we have to connect the areas where mangoes, rice, yung bananas, pineapples, yung mga isda that you could enjoy. We have to connect that properly to the distribution centers. And major implementable government projects for approval happening here in Mindanao or is the scheduled, no, for funding, as already mentioned. Yung health spending is a social protection, and sabi nga ni Pierre Novel, no, and for the knowledge also of most of our listeners, yung malnourishment po in Mindanao for a time medyo talagang problematic, and this is the rate of the annual per capita health spending. And we are also looking at some areas needing safe water, yung to the level 3, because ang dami-dami pa pong municipalities needing support for that. Because as mentioned, when we talk about reducing poverty rates, that is not just an ordinary pinapababa po yung poverty, but also the quality of life of those in the affected areas. And hopefully, ito po yung nangyayari, Pierre Novel, merong disaster resource center sa Luzon. There is also a disaster center sa Visayas, pero no Mindanao Resource Center as yet dito sa Mindanao. And we hope that in the SONA, this would be considered, no, be part of the plan for the coming 12 months. And in education spending, yung sinasabi nating learning losses, because the malnourishment here in Mindanao happen to be high, but cannot afford that the opportunity for learning would also be all that problematic. So in the recent years, there's a gradual increase in education spending. Yeah. And we hope that this would continue in the next 12 months to 2028. And second highest in just 2 years. And the most recent, yung sinasabing public safety, the best that we could really tell is the lifting of the state of emergency on account of lawless violence in Mindanao. This was issued in July 25, 2023, the proclamation number 298. Ano po ang effect nito? The effect of this is that international travelers, investors can come to Mindanao without the trouble of being reminded that your insurance will not cover you when you are in Mindanao. Yun po, we are missing plenty of opportunities of development and investments. Daming areas for investments, opportunities, but they cannot come to Mindanao because of the perception na magulo ang Mindanao. But it's not true because the proclamation number 298 already tells there's no state of emergency in Mindanao. Ano pong impact nito? The impact of this is there's the rapid decline in the conflict in Mindanao. And in fact, the most recent report is wala na pong kidnapping incidents that had happened in Mindanao. 100% na po yung troubles being addressed in the areas of Tawi-Tawi, Basilan, and Sulu, in the areas of Basulta. That's on the western part. Dito naman po sa eastern part, the guerrilla problems, weakened guerrilla fronts if not dismantled in the Caraga areas. Ano pong impact nito in relation to the public safety in the 2 years of administration of the current president? There's a 16.4% in the reduction in poverty in the BARM and 6.5 reduction rate in the Caraga. So we hit already the single digit target for the Caraga. So we have plenty of things to do in the areas of the BARM. And yun, we are saying therefore, Pierre Novel, that in Mindanao, the context is improve the perception of peace because it's already peaceful and safe in Mindanao. And the rest of the good things would follow. And if there is now investments, public investments and private investments happening in Mindanao, our rice capacity production, because we have a vast lands here for rice production and plenty of all other sources that could contribute to reducing the problems of inflation and improving the purchasing power of the whole nation. So yun po, Pierre Novel, yung impact nito as you have mentioned also regionally in the case of Mindanao.
Okay. Maganda yung na-report ni Pierre Adrian with regards to ano yung mga updates and development in Mindanao, and at least nare-relate natin doon sa usapin natin about doon sa zona ni Presidente na so more or less may mga areas talaga in Mindanao na talagang nakikita natin na progress is being achieved, improvements doon sa socio-economic nung areas like doon sa ni Sir Adrian doon sa Caraga ba yun?
Yung guerrilla fronts weekend dismantled.
Oo na So pero balikan ko lang din yung Adrian doon sa when you were mentioning about yung budget na nilalaan sa Mindanao. So tinitingnan ko lang din kasi yung ginawa namin last year. Kasi tinignan namin yung regional allocation ng budget by sector kunwari. So kunwari sa agriculture, ang share ng Mindanao is doon sa buong budget is last year is 15% of total. So ang malaki syempre diyan is Luzon. Actually, pag sinama mo pa yung NCR dyan, malaki ang share ng NCR. So, nag-increase naman in terms of yung agriculture budget ng Mindanao. Nag-increase naman siya from, from 4%, nag-increase siya ng 27% last year. Sa education, ganun din. Tumaas din yung share ng Mindanao sa education. Nag-increase siya from 18.4 to 12%. Even sa health, nag-increase din yung share niya from 8% to 9%. Except sa public works and highways, actually medyo bumaba pa ata yung allocation ng public works sa Mindanao. But again, while nakikita na, in fact, pinakita mo rin doon, Pierre Adrian, na tumataas nga yung allocation sa Mindanao. But of course, ang malaking question pa rin kasi dyan, while nakikita natin yung positive change doon sa budget allocation, is sana na gagastos sana ng maayos yung itong mga allocation na to. Of course, ibang usapan kasi yung whether or not na-utilize ba nila yung pondo na nilaan for Mindanao. So while nakikita natin in total nag-i-improve yung levels, but kailangan siguro busisihin din natin paano, whether or not maayos ba yung paggastos nitong pera na to. Kasi ang ang sa the final analysis kasi, dapat makita natin whether nagko-contribute ba siya doon sa improvement ng outcomes. Like kunwari sa education, di ba? Pinag-usapan natin learning losses. Kung maayos sana ang paggastos nitong mga resources na to, then we would expect improvement in the education outcome, whether sa competence, kasi proficiency level. Kasi na surprise lang kami doon sa isang kasi sa budget ng mga departments meron silang mga targets eh. Isang indicator kasi doon is yung proficiency level ng mga estudyante. That be in math, that be in science, gano'n na ano. Kasi usually ang average, sabi na natin passing rate should be 75% proficiency. Yun yung parang if you across yan standard yan across countries eh. Pansin lang namin doon sa ang target ba naman nila is hindi 75% proficiency, but parang masaya na sila kung medyo malapit sa 75% proficiency. I mean, assuming kung ganun kasi yung target natin, and we are not being very, hindi naman ambitious, but of course kailangan lang natin iangat doon sa standard across countries para at least comparable naman tayo sa mga kapitbahay natin na but again, very important that we will be able to meet yung mga targets na yon para ma-achieve natin yung gusto nating outcomes in health, kumbaga yan, or in education, or even in agricultural productivity. Kasi at the end of the day, Per Edren, babalik tayo doon sa sinasabi mo about employment, about quality jobs. Kasi importante kasi yung mga natin, kababayan natin, they should be able to secure gainful employment that would be able to meet their socio-economic requirements, gastos sa tuition fee, pagkain araw-araw, pamasahe, etc., etc. So unless you're able to be employed and paid salaries that are commensurate with your needs, yun po yung kailangan natin sigurong pag-igihan. And again, especially doon sa area ng Mindanao, Pierre Adrian, na siguro, of course, alam naman natin, of course, there are areas there that compared to the other regions, medyo pa rin, lagging behind pa rin. So hopefully, yun yung after the SONA, then itong coming budget season, siguro yun yung importante pagtuunan natin ng pansin, is iangat natin yung mga lugar or yung mga households natin na are left behind. So ang dapat kailangan ang ating motto or ating advocacy is that no one should be left behind.
Correct. Inclusive growth. But Pierre Novel, there's a question from our live audience. Who will benefit from the rice tariff reduction? It is a legislative measure, as we already discussed kanina. Will it be the consumers, farmers, or traders? Ako muna, no?
Sure.
Because in Mindanao, daming rice producers dito. And medyo, well, to be honest, natatamaan ng rice tariff reduction kasi
Yes.
they're expecting a price level of the particular produce that they have. So basically, minsan umaangal talaga yung
Yes. True.
farmers natin. Now, second is doon naman sa consumers, will it lead also into the experience of a reduction in the price level when it reaches the market? Yung konteksto po kasi sana is that the tariff rice reduction should be contemplated in will it be rice sufficiency
Yeah.
or on the food security?
Oo.
Is it on the food sovereignty concept or is it on the food security concept? Because it has to bring also all together yung mga farmers natin na natatamaan ngayon. It's raining in Mindanao, no, yung inclement weather dito, daming natatamaan ng rice areas. So what would happen to the expected rice harvest? And who would support also them? So basically, if yun ang nangyayari, we would expect a spike in the price of the rice. Pero minsan, kasi yung rice, when it is imported, and this was an experience in the market po, Pierre Novel, no? Na because it will not, no? Hindi nasisira for a year or 6 months.
Yes.
Kaya
Correct.
expected na rice that should be distributed to the market, yun, no? Hinuhold muna. Hinuhold muna. So, there should be yung sinasabi nyo, Pierre Novel, on the implementation. If it is a committed import for a particular distribution period, then it has to be followed through so that the benefit of our rice tariff reduction should be on the consumers, on the farmers, or on the
Yes.
traders. You
Yes.
import during the periods on the expected rice reduction kasi nga umuulan. So there would be a lower supply of that. So this period is appropriate time for importation.
Yes.
During periods of harvest, wag naman po sana kayo
Timing ang ano niyan.
Yes, correct. That's our experience here now in the rice farmers in Mindanao. Pierre Novel, yung experience naman, the questions of consumers, farmers, and traders.
Actually, ito yung sinasabi na nga namin ni Sir Tony. Siguro sa susunod, dapat pag-usapan na natin yung rice tarification. Pero, ano lang, madali ang sagot lang. Ang benefit talaga ng rice tarification will go to the consumers. Tingnan po natin yung nung in-implement po natin yung RTL, yung rice tarification law, which basically liberalize rice importation. Kasi kung matatandaan nyo, during the pre-RTL, NFA po ang may monopoly ng rice importation. Hindi po yan hindi po yan binibigay sa private sector. But in fairness, there was positive change during the implementation of RTL. Napansin po natin na medyo nag-stabilize po yung presyo ng bigas. In a way, in some in other times talagang nakita po natin yung pagbaba ng rice price during the RTL implementation. So, but ang sinasabi po ng mga rice experts is kasi ang buhay kasi especially nung RCEP, yung Rice Competitive Enhancement Fund, ano po yan, parang I think it's 6-year implementation and hindi pa po kasi natatapos yung na yon, yung term na yon. So in so far as yung evaluation kasi nung RTL is concerned, hindi pa siya kompleto. Mayroon pang I think 2 more harvest cycles para talagang matapos talaga yung implementation. But so far, yung initial findings shows may positive gains naman sa rice tarification law. Ang sinasabi lang ng mga experts is bigyan pa ng sapat ng konting panahon para makita talaga yung positive effect. But so again, from the point of consumers, makikita natin yung positive gain sa kanila in terms of uh, more stable prices of rice. Pagdating naman po sa farmers, producers na one of course during this time alam naman natin na mataas pa kasi ang cost ng production ng mga farmers. So pag tinapat mo sa imported rice yan, sa presyo, pag kinonvert mo to peso per kilo, yung presyo ng imported price compared to domestic price, talagang talo talaga yung local price. Talo ang farmers diyan na ano. So, again, ito yung kailangan siguro na pagtuunan pansin ng gobyerno is how to protect yung ating rice producers. Some sort of subsidy sana. I'm sure meron naman yan. I'm sure DA has a program to protect local rice producers during the time na hindi sila makakompete with imported rice, especially pag binabayang ano na yan, yung taripa na yan, we expect na talagang papasok talaga yung volume ng imported rice na ano. But ang basic objective kasi din ng RTL, yung nakokolekta diyan sa taripa, yung Rice Competitive Enhancement Fund na yan, yung RCEP na yan. Ang basic objective niyan kasi is tulungan yung mga rice producers to be competitive. Meaning, para mapantas or maipantay yung rice production, yung cost of rice production ng ating Filipino rice farmers relative to mga producer sa Thailand, producer sa Vietnam, ganyan. Kasi right now, talo tayo eh. Ang cost natin siguro is around 12 pesos per kilo compared to 7-8 pesos to Thailand and Vietnam. So pag tayo nag-import doon, talaga pagdating dito, talo yung rice farmers natin. So, yun yung objective ng RCEP is to help rice farmers to be competitive. And later on, para at least makapantay, makatapat na tayo sa mga rice producers in ASEAN. So, yun yung parang konteksto ko diyan sa pagdating diyan sa rice tarification or sa pagbawas ng taripa sa rice, sa imported rice.
Correct. So kaya nga it's always a balance to that. Yun lang, the timing kasi
Malaki rin yan. Quickly, dadagdagan ko lang yung sinabi mo sa timing, Pierre Adrian. Kasi there was a time, I'm not sure it was time ni President Macapagal Arroyo ata, na hindi naayos yung timing ng pag-import ng rice. So,
yeah,
tama yung sabi mo na dapat nag-i-import ka during the lean months. Na so supposed to be dapat during the lean months dumarating yung mga yung supply ng imported rice mo. There was a time na hindi maayos yung pag-timing nung pagpasok ng imported rice. In a way, nagkaroon tuloy ng artificial shortage ng rice supply kasi hindi nga dumating kaagad yung inimport during these months. So during that time, na-experience natin one of the highest level of rice prices in history because hindi naayos yung timing ng pagpasok ng rice import.
correct. So that shows really the need for us for collective measures and support. Perhaps in the discussion in the rice tarification law, we could also look at the limitations of our rice production, yung economies of scale natin.
Yeah.
Kasi it's costly kasi kunti lang yung planted with rice.
Yes.
And we have to look into that kasi baka there's a reflection of the agrarian reform law also.
Yeah, isa rin. Para maraming. Tama rin yung sabi mo, Pero Adrian, kanina, yung dapat medyo malinaw na yung usapan natin whether ang target, ang goal ba natin is rice sufficiency or food security. And I'm sure sa atin malinaw naman na dapat food security talaga yan. Kasi para yung sinasabi mo nga kanina, maraming considerations kasi kailangan natin isipin. Pag talagang pinush natin yung rice sufficiency kasi nga sabi mo nga na may limitation kasi yung yung rice farmers natin in terms of gaano ba kalaki yung nila pinagtatanam nilang rice land na kasi nga ang sabi sa agrarian is ang limit lang na ng sa mga agrarian beneficiaries is 2 to 1 to 2 hectares. 1 to
Yes.
2 hectares of agricultural land. So, pag inisip mo talaga yung economies of scale, no, kung kakayanan bang, in fact, even doon sa 1 to 2 hectares na yun, na kung isipin mo, Per Adrian, mas malaki pa talagang ginagastos mo sa production kaysa yung kikitain mo sa liit na, na yun, sa liit na lupa na yun.
Correct, correct. Kaya nga, medyo talo tayo doon, no?
Talo ka doon eh. Na,
With just 4 minutes left, no?
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
4 minutes namin na natin dapat pag-usapan, no?
Parang nag-intro ka pala kanina.
The many things that we could
Pero
learn.
ako lang, Piredran, malaking bagay din tong platform na to para at least na i-explain natin sa mga taong bayan na bakit nagkakaroon ng ganitong mga concerns issues sa bansa natin. So, I hope na makarating sa mas nakakarami itong mga pinag-uusapan natin dito sa peers.
Correct, correct. And very importantly, information derived from this
Yes.
Are things that could also help them see things in a different perspective.
Yes, correct,
Hindi lang
correct. Oo.
in the ordinary na nakukuha, but it's of course coming from you, no, an expert in the legislative measures and also with the long experience and
Yes.
works of the government, and also from Mindanao. That is why we also hope na sana in the coming SONA Peer Novel, no, sana makarating din. That
Yun.
would expect yung support for agriculture. As you have mentioned, medyo maliit lang yung increase compared to all
Yes.
other places because dami-daming pagkain dito, rice as well as all other products, and also the infrastructure, public works as you have mentioned, because if we would improve our transportation logistics, the products, the food that we would be supporting for the whole nation would also come to be affordable. And hopefully, kasi nga natatamaan na rin kami ng bagyo, and then we would also, hindi yan na-contemplate long before because we are typhoon free. Pero ngayon, dahil sa climate change, kaya doon lang sa Luzon at sa Visayas kasi palaging natatamaan ng bagyo. But we hope that there would also be a disaster resource center also established in Mindanao, as well as on the public safety and security. We continue to highlight that Mindanao is safe and secure already. So, plenty of things to learn, plenty of things to discuss. But yun na nga, for everything good that we are learning, there is also an end to this. And we hope that we would see everyone next Sunday for
Adrian, quickly lang.
Sure.
Siguro few seconds lang. Babalik ko lang din yung usapin natin sa SONA. Kasi usually kasi ang SONA parang nagiging yan, enumeration ng ano yung ginawa, ano yung natapos, etc. na But sa akin lang, I mean from a very personal point of view na ang sana gusto ko sanang marinig na sana mas aspirational yung tono nung SONA. Yung parang to lift up yung nung buong Pilipinas for us to be inspired by the leadership. Kasi alam naman natin everyday yung dinadanas ng mga kababayan natin na But yun lang, I would hope that the tone doon sa SONA would be more aspirational para alam mo yon to improve yung positive mood and to really rally as doon sa dapat natin direksyon na mapuntahan in the next few years. So yun lang, Pierre Adrian, yung ano ko gusto sabihin with regards to the SONA.
Oo, kasi parting notes, no? Kasi yun na nga, we remain as one nation.
Oo.
Kaya maraming salamat hanggang sa susunod.
Susunod na kwentuhan.
Susunod na kwentuhan. Maraming salamat, Pierre Novel, at sa lahat ng who have been tuning in for 1 hour. See you next Sunday.
Enzo, thank you. Thank you, Enzo.